IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor, your habit coach. And today we have a very interesting episode. We're going to be talking about food, nutrition, health, exercise, all those aspects that are so important in our life. And I know there are so many different ideas and concepts out there. And today with us, we have a very special guest, Dr. Siddhant Bhargava, who's going to actually discuss these. Because this is something that is A, his business, and B, something that he's passionate about. So Siddhant, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you so much, Ashton. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm super excited to be here and discussing these things with a person who's passionate about so many different things. I think it just opens a completely new perspective and a dimension into what we're going to be talking about. So I'll just quickly introduce myself.
Please.
I'm Dr. Siddhant Bhargav. I am a doctor. I finished my MBBS about 5-6 years ago. Post that, moved into entrepreneurship, started my first startup, which is called Food Darzi. During the process of Food Darzi, of course, we kept growing. I now function as a content creator on social media platforms. That is something that I've picked up. And since the entire entrepreneurship, the entire fitness thing, the entire health thing really appeals to me, I'm very passionate about it. I'm currently in the middle of starting my second and third startup, which, if it works well, should change lives also. So yeah, this is me. I am an entrepreneur, I'm a doctor, and for the better of it, I think I'm a man-child. So that's me.
Man-child, I love it. I think that whole aspect of childhoodness, we should never lose, right? That is the part, that is the creativity, the charm, etc. Right?
Absolutely. It's a skill retaining parts of your childhood. I think most people try to grow up too fast. I'm quite privileged and happy and fortunate that I have it.
That's something so true, right? Because one of the things that I keep talking about, especially on habits, is that we take ourselves too seriously.
Yep.
Right? And that just like throws everything out the window. How did you manage to retain this man-childness?
I think I keep reminding myself that not to take one step too seriously, not to be overcritical of it, and to keep enjoying the things that I always enjoyed. Like, I'll give you a silly example. If I enjoyed irritating my sister when I was 15 years old, I enjoy irritating my sister when I'm 27 years old also. And it's just these small habits, as you call them, that I just managed to keep with me. And it works because getting yourself out of a bad situation, especially when you've got that childlike thing about you, is very simple. Like, I can just laugh myself out of every difficult situation, and I'm like, okay, let's make a joke on it, and then let's make it more inappropriate so that it's funnier, and then you're out of it faster. That's
okay, this is something that we have to definitely discuss on the second podcast that we do, right? Because this is something that is so critical, especially when we run a business, the way we think about it, because there are going to be problems left, right, and center. We're going to be constantly firefighting them. How did you get into this whole nutrition, health, start Food Darzi? Why did you do all that?
It was quite simple. When I was finishing my MBBS, I was in the final year, and I had, I don't know what it's called, but I had something that told me that, just being a doctor probably wasn't going to be enough. So I come from a family of doctors. My granddad, my dad, all my relatives, they're all doctors. And I just thought that it might not be enough to keep me satisfied, because I get bored really easily. And what's better than building something? So that's when I got talking with a couple of my friends from school. I had finished my personal training certification, my nutrition certifications right when I was 18, because my mom's been running a gym for the past 25 years. So she's one who kept pushing me into the entire health fitness segment. And once I clicked with these friends, once I clicked with the concept, we started Food Darzi as a service that only delivered ketogenic meals. We basically rode the entire ketogenic wave that came about around 4 years ago. And then from there, we just realized that it's health, fitness, investment in your health, fitness, in your nutrition is far more serious than it is. And it's only going to keep growing. And then we just said to ourselves that this is a real startup idea. This is a business that you can actually grow to make huge. And we've been working over it. And then because I was part of that, I just got more deeply invested into the entire nutrition space. Only to come out of it right now. Like right now, I'm out of the nutrition space completely. Like I have my head on medicine, on nutrition, both. Earlier, it was all weight loss, get fit. But I think now I've struck a balance, and yeah, that's food that is running well.
So let's talk about these two things, because I know that there is a life beyond weight loss and fat loss,
Yes.
right? And unfortunately, all communication around health, around fitness ends at weight loss, fat loss,
Yep.
right? This penny dropped for me when I reached all my weight loss, fat loss goals, and I was like, up kya,
Ab kya kar?
right? And then I was like, chalo, now I'm going to do anti-aging, and I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. So there are so
Good
many
stuff.
different ways of thinking about food, etc. Right? So what are the ways that you think, people who are listening to this podcast should hold nutrition as a bucket in their mind?
Okay. The first thing that people need to understand and need to accept and need to practice is that you need to make food and nutrition simpler for yourself. Like as times pass, everything just keeps getting more complex because you have one person saying something and the other saying something. But you need to understand that you want to make nutrition simpler for yourself if you really want to abide by it. Otherwise, you're just going to be on one wave and then down and then one wave and then a trough and then a crest and then a trough. It doesn't make sense. So simplifying nutrition is what you need to do. And that's what I try to do through social media also. I try to debunk a lot of myths because nutrition is supposed to be simple. I don't want to be eating 28 grams of avocado sprinkled with 4 grams of pumpkin seeds. I mean, that's just stupid, right? So make it simple. The second thing that you need to keep in mind is that get your facts right when you're starting off. Because, chalo, I'm going to give you an example. What correct nutrition is going to do to your life probably would be if I told you that you ate right every single day of the year, you'd live to be 81 years and 360 days. But if you didn't eat right, you probably live to be 81 years and 75 days. So, the difference isn't that much when it comes to life expectancy, but it's these smaller hurdles that you have to keep crossing if you're not balancing your nutrition and your fitness out. So, that is something people need to understand, that you're not doing it for a short term gain. You're actually being a visionary to yourself, and you're doing yourself a favor by getting things right now. And it's always too late. When you speak about health, it's literally always too late. And the third thing that you need to, actually, I don't have a third thing. My two things have exhausted my
I just
mental
want
space.
to, my mind was blown when you said you need to be a visionary about your health, because that is something that we don't think about, right?
Yeah,
We think about visionaries as people who built countries and built this and built that and all. But dude, you're building your life. Now, if you
absolutely.
can't be visionary about your life, what is the point of it? And like
Yep.
you said, that is how you should start thinking about food. Food is such an important aspect of it, right? What was the penny drop moment for you when you started researching and learning more about food?
Oh, I think what it was, um, I just realized that people are doing it all wrong.
Hmm.
I mean, when I was studying, when I was researching, obviously I had my physiology and my anatomy and my biochemistry all here because that's what I'd studied. But then when I actually put it to practical use, I realized that people have been eating wrong for decades. And it was me as a 22-year-old kid, and I was like, "Ha, you think you're too smart? You're going to try and change decade-old policies." And then I realized that I can't do it right now. But at the age of 27, I think I can. Like I've been doing it, and people actually listen. And back then what happened was that when I was reading, I realized that people don't um, understand the concept. See, let's face the harsh reality. 25% of the Indian population is regarded as obese. Previous to the lockdown, it was 21.4%. Right now, it's around 26.4%. Now, which means that getting healthy for 26.4% means to lose weight. So even though we say that, we can't ever belittle the concept of losing weight, because unfortunately for a large amount of people, getting healthy starts with losing weight. Now, if you're not losing weight right, it doesn't make sense because you can't keep yo-yoing. You need to understand the concept of calories in versus calories out. You need to understand that everything is thermodynamically balanced, which means that if you're consuming more calories than you expend, you're going to put on weight. And people just wouldn't understand that. For people, eating healthy equated losing weight automatically, just as if your body was going to cut you slack and do you a favor. No, it doesn't work that way. If you're eating 10 chapatis and 5 plates of rice, I don't think you're going to be losing weight if you're doing that with every meal, right? Everything needs to be quantified appropriately and then consumed. So that's when my mind was blown that my grandmom and my granddad and my relatives, it started small, right? And my friends, all of them had a very skewed relationship with food and a very skewed understanding of food. And that's when I realized that something can be done of this because people can be educated. And as time kept passing, people got more and more obsessed with health. The pandemic did people no good when it came to obsession with health. But I think now
Banana
people should
bread,
be in a
Dalgona coffee.
absolutely. But I think now people should be in a better space because the entire the seriousness of COVID is going to go down. But I think part of the seriousness of taking your health seriously is going to stay, and that's a good space to be in.
So at least it's making people more conscious about their health
Yes.
as an approach that has
Yeah.
come across this. You said you started off this journey with riding the keto wave, right?
Hmm.
How did you decide on a ketogenic diet as the way to go?
Okay. Whenever you're trying to make an impact, you want to either do something that is already done better or you want to try something new, right? Now, when we were starting Food Darzi at that time, there were very few people who were doing these subscription meals. Like a subscription model was unheard of because it doesn't work. Us time pe we thought, I'm sorry I used a little Hindi, but at that time we thought about how do we make our product relevant to an audience who's going to be willing to pay money. That was the thought process. And we thought that you need to create weight loss for people because nobody's going to subscribe. Now, keto wasn't a big entity back then. 2017 April is when we thought of let's do keto. It wasn't a big entity. Only people who are really invested in their health, people who are going to the gym 11 times a week, were the people who are really doing a ketogenic diet. And we thought this is something which is scientific. I had already heard about keto probably in 2013 when you were doing biochemistry. I loved the concept. I just was unsure about the fact that is a high fat diet going to do something wrong to your body? Because the concept of complete low carbs was very normal to me. I didn't have any objections with that. So we started off and it picked up because everybody was getting the quick weight loss that they desired without understanding concept back then. And then eventually, say 5 months, 6 months into it, people actually started understanding what keto was because it came to India. And then we emerged as the first nutrition company that was doing only keto services. Of course, we got a little flack for it because why are you doing keto and it's going to kill you and this and that. But yeah, that's how keto started. It was actually being opportunistic and being visionary about how the space of health is going to move towards, and that's the way we got on to.
Interesting. When you were studying and becoming a doctor, what was the focus on food at that point of time in the medical industry?
Absolutely nothing. A doctor knows absolutely nothing about nutrition. I don't mean to be condescending. I'm just trying to say that we aren't taught about it. So it's not like a doctor is supposed to know everything about food. It's just that we aren't taught about it. Like for us, food and nutrition is one chapter in a topic called community medicine. And community medicine is the most mundane subject you're ever going to read. And that chapter is omitted by all of us because it's never, you're never quizzed on it. There's no examination conducted on that chapter. So that's that. And uh, I think I'm going to have to ask you to ask me that question again because either you were asking me about whether doctors understand food or whether how was food for you when you were becoming a doctor. I need clarification on that.
No, you answered it perfectly in what we were
Yeah,
discussing.
so
I'm
this
saying
is what
because
it is. Doctors
because
don't know food.
doctors exactly and when I talk to my doctor friends as well, they're like once I started learning about food, like I was like mind blown because we weren't taught these things. So when did you start researching this and exploring it further?
Oh, so see, I was a regular 16, 17, 18-year-old boy. Puberty hit me a little late, which meant that I started looking like I wanted to look by the age of 16 and 17, and I grew a personality then. So that's the time when I wanted to go to the gym and have 100 girlfriends and things like that. That was one of the dreams in life. Obviously, that's really stupid because I still have 100 girlfriends. I'm just kidding.
Woohoo!
But but it was when I turned 18, that's when my mom said that, you've got your admission into medicine and you're doing what your dad and you wanted, but I have a gym and I want to continue my legacy too, and you can't be selfish and this and that. So she made me do my certifications at the age of 18 also. So for me, my relationship with nutrition and with fitness, like I used to be bulky when I was 18. Like I had nice big muscles and I used to be one of those kids who ate 30 egg whites a day. So my skewed relationship with nutrition had started at the age of 18. I finished my certifications at the age of 18, but it's only when I really started researching for Food Darzi, that's when I had a more holistic perspective because at the age of 18, it was all about bodybuilding. And then during Food Darzi, it was all about losing weight. And then finally, a couple of years ago, when I finally became a little mature, when I grew up, then I had a more complete understanding of what nutrition can do and what health and wellness must mean. So yeah.
And when that penny drop moment happens, it is like there's like the heavens have opened. I'm like, hallelujah, right?
Yeah.
Before going ahead, we'll take a quick break.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Paisa Vaisa, we have a midweek special. Anupam is joined by Chintan Haria, Head of Product Development and Strategy at ICICI Prudential AMC. They talk about the ICICI Prudential NASDAQ 100 Index Fund. What's it like to be a woman in the city? Find out on the Filter Coffee, where Vedashi Kambati Sharma talks to Karthik about her new book, Fatal Mistakes. On Audio Gyan, Shreya Satish, founder and CEO of OwnPath, talks to Kedar and Abhineet about how OwnPath was created to help professionals grow in their career through lifelong learning and professional networks. On The Longest Constitution, Priya explains how bar dancers are barred from dancing due to an arbitrary moral distinction in the name of public morality. And on Agla Station Adulthood, Ritasha and Ayushi discuss the hazards of chaos and the importance of appreciating silence. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our others for that matter, please do tell a friend. We really appreciate you spreading this. Word of mouth helps a lot. And finally, this week, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, and Intel. We really appreciate the support.
And we are back. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick 3 things. Okay, so 3 things that every person who wants to become a bodybuilder or put on muscle needs to know about nutrition.
Okay, if you want to put on muscle, the first thing is a calorie surplus. That's the first thing you need to know about. The second thing is the importance of protein, where you need to be consuming upwards of 1.5 grams of protein per kg of your body weight. And the third thing is, if you're not progressively overloading, you're not going to get there.
Same thing applies for men and women?
Same thing applies for men and women both. Like if you're serious about building muscle, a caloric surplus is always going to put you in a better state to build muscle. The protein content that you're eating has to be above 1.5 because you want to be building muscle fast. And progressive overload is quite self-explanatory, but you need to be pushing your muscles harder than you pushed them the previous session, whether it's number of reps, number of sets, decreased rest periods, or actually increasing the volume of your workout. So these are the 3 things.
And 3 mistakes people make when they're trying to think about it.
Overtraining is one mistake that they make. Let's put overtraining and undertraining in the same bucket. Overtraining because you end up giving smaller muscles too much volume that doesn't let you recover in time. Undertraining means that you're not actually overloading them or progressively overloading them enough. Both of these is going to give you a negative impact on the way you train. The second thing is not eating enough. Of course, there is something known as body recomposition where you can eat at maintenance calories and you can still put on muscle while you can lose fat. But the problem with this process is that it's really slow. So a lot of people tend to eat healthy when their actual goal in mind is to put on muscle. But eating healthy sort of means either you're in a deficit or you're eating in maintenance, and the process is going to be slow. So not focusing on the caloric surplus and being scared to put on a little fat is another mistake people make. The third thing is trying to go too heavy on supplementation, trying to rely too much on supplementation, and even thinking about steroids probably would be the third mistake that people make, because you need to have different goals in mind. I'm not saying steroids are right and wrong. The law tells us that steroids are technically illegal in our country unless advised by a doctor. So that put aside, people focus too much on the kind of supplementations that they need. But at the end of the day, again, it's all thermodynamics, right? You eat more, you push more, your body is forced to give you that response by putting on muscle. Your body is built that way. So I think overcomplicating simple shit is what people make mistakes in.
Overcomplicating simple things. Like, for example, supplementation is something that everyone gets either too scared of, overcomplicates, or like ODs on, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the journey that you think is good up to this point, right?
Okay.
So whey protein, creatine, L-carnitine, kahan tak is fine and beyond which is not?
It's fine for whatever you want to do. Like you have ALA, you have L-carnitine, you have creatine, you have hydroxycut, you have fat burners, you've got whey protein, you've got casein, you've got vegan. It's all there. But in my opinion, what a beginner who goes to the gym does not require whey protein. His first aim in life should be to try and meet his protein content through his food, because that's what he needs to put in his head first. Now, if he cannot meet his protein requirements through food, that's when you move to your first round of supplementation, which could either be whey protein or could be plant-based protein, depending on your preferences. Once you started this, if you're getting more serious about your workouts, you might want to amp this up to 2 scoops a day, because you want to be consuming more protein to actually build more muscle. And the same thing for losing weight also. Even if you're trying to lose weight, you want to retain as much muscle as possible. So protein requirements don't change drastically. Of course, when you're trying to really build muscle, you can always have more, but I think you got my point. The next thing that you want to move in is, if you're serious about bodybuilding, if you think that you want to push harder in the gym and you're not being able to, that's when you stumble upon creatine. I think it's a wonderful supplement to consume. Does not have side effects, is not going to dehydrate you.
Not
So
going to hair loss.
the hair loss thing is because people should understand, if they're going to the gym, they're losing hair. It's as simple as that. Like, for example, I've got the male pattern baldness thing. Like when I was younger, my hairline used to be here. My hairline is shifted 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters behind what it is. Now, when I go to the gym, when I actually press weight, I am inducing my glands to produce more testosterone. The moment I produce more testosterone, I am going to lose more hair, because testosterone converts to DHT, and DHT acts on the follicles in your scalp and makes you lose hair. So any activity that makes you more of a man per se is going to fuel the male pattern baldness. And it's the same thing with creatine. Creatine, essentially, some component of it might increase testosterone production, but the majority is because you're going to the gym. So you make your choice. And hair loss is something which you can actually bring me back on someday later, talk about at length, because I've battled it and most people battle it and it causes insecurities anyways. So creatine is good. Moving on, carnitine and ALA are, it's a 10-11 kind of a situation. It's not like you're going to get in shape because you took carnitine or ALA. It's just about how much money you have and how obsessed with fitness you are to get to that point, because I don't think a normal individual should be taking those at all. And the last thing we can talk about is BCAAs, which is a rage. Again, if you've got money, go for it, because yes, the branch chain amino acids, when taken intra workout, do have their set of benefits. And I said it a little mockingly because these benefits aren't really very pronounced if you're a hardcore non-vegetarian, or if you're having any of the whey proteins that are sold right now. Most of them are fortified with BCAAs anyways. So there's no point of actually consuming these all the time. So
versus EAA?
Essential amino acids. Now, essential amino acids are what your body can't produce. I think there are 10 essential amino acids that your body can't produce. And all of these are anyways given to you in the form of supplementation via whey protein, or the animal that you consume, or the dal that you consume. All of them have a different amino acid balance. Why vegetarian protein sources don't have all the essentials? Because they're not complete sources of protein. So you need to club 2 vegetarian sources to make it a complete protein, so on and so forth. But yeah, about the supplementation, I think whey protein is the only supplement people should be consuming up until the time they start understanding why they should consume more than whey protein. Just don't consume it because somebody's telling you to.
I love it. Breaking it down, saying that get most of your nutrition from your food first.
Yeah.
Learn how to do that, because otherwise you're going to be constantly saying next supplement. What is the next supplement? What is the next supplement? What is the next supplement? Love it. Okay. 3 things you wished every person on a weight loss journey knew.
The first thing is a calorie deficit. You need to be consuming less number of calories than your body actually burns. And let's talk about this a little further, because it's important. The only way to lose weight is through a calorie deficit. You cannot lose weight by consuming detox teas and things like that, because I'm going to rephrase this. As long as you're in a calorie deficit, no matter what you do is going to make you lose weight. Now, whether you stop eating completely, whether you eat 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, 5 meals a day, 10 meals a day, whether you consume green tea, black coffee, green coffee, whatever you want to do, the end process is a calorie deficit. So that's the first thing everybody needs to know. You eat less, you work out more, you're going to lose weight. The second thing that people need to know is that when you're trying to lose weight, you need to exercise. Yes, losing weight without exercising. I'm going to rephrase this also. You need to strength train when you're trying to lose weight, because losing weight without doing any kind of resistance training is only doing you a tad bit more harm than good. When you're losing weight, obviously your body's shedding off weight, and it's not always fat that you're losing. If you do not resistance train, if you do not give your muscles the impetus to keep growing, they are going to start losing muscle, which means you're going to start losing a chunk of your metabolic rate, which means once you're done with your weight loss, you're metabolically less active, or the amount of calories your body can burn at rest is lower, and you're going to gain weight in the future. So not exercising while losing weight is something that people should not do. And the third thing is,
one second, let me just iterate that last one, which is important, which is saying that, very often we hear people saying that, as soon as I stopped exercising, put on my weight. This is the reason why you put on your weight, because probably you were doing way more of cardio-based exercises where your muscle loss took place, and as a result, your actual metabolic rate, because your muscle was lost in that, and muscle is metabolic tissue.
Perfectly said.
Right? So that whole rebounding thing is because of this. If you put on more muscle, the rebounding is far lesser, almost non-existent.
And this is a very underrated concept, especially in India, because people are okay looking skinny fat. Like for a lot of people, their goal is to just fit into
the
next
skinny
size
fat
that
also.
Okay. Skinny fat is basically most of us. Me, I am skinny fat. What that means is that my limbs are skinny. I have no muscle on my limbs, but a large amount of fat is deposited along the chest, the back, or my trunk, essentially. And that's most Indian men. They're all skinny fat. And they're okay being skinny fat because they just want to look good in this shirt, right? Like they don't care whether they look perfect in the shirt. And that's also not, it's not contributing well to their long-term health goals or their long-term health visions as well. And for women, again, most people care about spot reduction. And if cardio gives them the thigh gap, or if cardio removes the jiggle on their tricep, they're okay with it. So they don't see the need to actually weight train. They don't see the need to preserve muscle. They don't see the need to grow muscle. And it's a flawed concept. So we'll get there. As you keep educating people, and one day you'll get there.
Yeah, the skinny fat thing comes as a surprise, especially I see this a lot, for example, in yoga teachers. Right, where they are skinny, their body looks good, but that they're carrying fat that is not necessarily good for them, especially because it's always visceral fat primarily. Is the visceral fat is the fat around your organs, which is the unhealthy part of the fat, right? So it's not necessarily the not good looking good, but it is the unhealthy part of it.
Correct.
Love it. Point 3 you were going to mention.
Point 3 is simplify your food when you're trying to lose weight, because the more you complicate it, the less sustainable it's going to get. And when I say simplify your food, I mean simplify your food, simplify your diet, choose your diet wisely, choose your diet maturely, because yes, you can be selecting tougher diets in intervals, but don't start off with the tougher diet, because you need to understand that creating a lifestyle change is the way to go. So that's the third thing. Creating a lifestyle change is the third point, and that's most important, because if you can't be eating the same food for 3 months, you're not actually losing weight. Because that's the fact, right? You can't be, of course, if you join a service like Fooddarzi, obviously we're simplifying it for you and giving you different foods every day, but not everybody has joined Fooddarzi. And for you, you can't be expecting to eat tasty food all the time. That's not how dieting works. Losing weight is boring, right? It is a boring concept. Yes, you can make it interesting, but it requires an investment of time. So yes, simplify your food, stick to foods that you like, that you love, and that you can eat for a long period of time. And that's the third point.
Simplifying food, making sure that it's not hardcore, which is what you cannot consistently do for the rest of your life. Like that's what we talk about the habit coach as well. Like, don't be too hardcore. Become hardcore just to understand what it feels like, but you need to learn how to simplify it for the rest of your life. So there are times when you have to do hardcore, but most of the time is when you should be simplifying life.
Yeah,
absolutely love it. I think that also deals with a lot of the mistakes people make. So we don't necessarily need to jump into the 3 mistakes.
Yeah.
But there's this one question that we keep getting often, which is, how do I put on weight? And now normally when people in a group say this, everyone else comes and tries to beat them up and give them 2 thuppards and etc. So what is the point of when people say, I can't put on weight? What is it that they're doing wrong?
What they're referring to is very simple. These are people who remain skinny all their life. These are people who are called hangers and things like that, because being obese is a problem, but being skinny is also a problem, because at the end of both spectrums, you don't look at the mirror and feel confident, and you don't look at the mirror and feel happy about your body. So being skinny is a real problem. It causes a lot of bullying as well, and nobody likes being skinny, just the way nobody likes being fat. In order to put on weight, again, the same 3 things, what we spoke about, putting on muscle, which is a calorie surplus, weight training, and the progressive overload part, I think that's covered in weight training. What was the third thing I mentioned when we spoke about building muscle?
You spoke about supplementation.
Protein content.
protein content.
And supplementation. So it's the same thing. For a skinny person, the main thing is to get into a calorie surplus. And the fact of the matter is that when you're skinny, your metabolic rate, just by some God's grace, is supremely high, which means in order to actually put on weight, you're consuming over 3,000 calories, 3,500 calories, because you just don't put on weight. These are the people who say, right, even if I eat pizzas and burgers, I just don't put on weight. What do I do? So you have to regimentedly be eating those number of calories every single day, and couple that with a lot of hard work and weight training, and you'll get there. I've seen so many skinny people who end up having the best bodies and the best physiques because all they have to do is gain muscle. I make it sound easy. It's not. Gaining muscle is not easy. But these people have the opportunity of having the best kind of bodies ever. They're lean, they're shredded, and they've got a decent amount of muscle on them.
Yeah, I keep telling people saying that you have no idea what kind of opportunity you have.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just like put that time in the gym, and you're going to see such a big transformation in the way that your body changes. This leads me to a question before I want to get into the last aspect, was the difference between nutrition, nutrient content, and the whole calories thing, because people focus on calories a lot, right?
Correct.
Let's understand what is the nutrient concept as well.
Okay. I'm actually going to start at the end that we shouldn't be talking about beginning mein. For example, everybody says that bajra, jawar, ragi, nachni, they're healthier rotis than wheat. Calorifically, they're all the same. Like, it just doesn't matter. Of course, 19-20 difference, but otherwise they're just the same. From a nutrition standpoint, each of them have their own peculiarities. Like ragi and nachni, for example, is going to be higher on iron. Wheat, for example, is say higher on some kind of a vitamin B. Bajra, for example, is higher on fat. So each of them have their different nutrient qualifications or qualities, but calorifically they're still the same. And this is what we need to start judging food by also. So there's no need to keep categorizing food as high calorie and low calorie, but sometimes you need to be categorizing food as more healthy and less healthy. Let's take a rich man's fruit, avocado, for example. It's got monounsaturated fatty acids, should be regarded as healthy. Let's take a poor man's fat, for example. I wouldn't call it a poor man's fat, that's a bad thing to say, but a general or a common fat, say nuts. Nuts have, say, an almond or a walnut. Now, an almond is not as healthy as a walnut is supposed to be, because an almond is higher on omega-6s, whereas a walnut is probably higher on omega-3 slightly. So a walnut is healthier than an almond, but calorie-wise, they're both the same. So that's what people need to also start paying attention to. But you know what? This isn't going to happen, because currently the wave is all about calories, and people like me are responsible for creating this wave also, because we've tried to push calories down everybody's throat, because tackling obesity right now makes more sense than tackling omega-6 versus omega-3. So I think the next generation, or probably 10 years from today, people will, when you go onto a shelf, instead of having high calorie and low calorie set apart, you'll actually have omega-6 and omega-3 and mono. All of that division will also happen. So yeah, I think there's a little time for that to happen in society, but nevertheless, it is important. You need to understand which food gives you more vitamin B, more vitamin C. If any food can give you vitamin K, if something can give you vitamin E, vitamin A, the antioxidants, the anti-inflammatories. There are a lot of things that can be considered, but probably not now.
You think it's a little too advanced at this stage? Let us first start.
Yeah. People will stop. Like, when you have too much homework to do, you're like, I don't want to do it. I'm just going to go to school without doing it because I can't finish it anyway. It's the same concept.
Okay, fair enough. What is the next evolution beyond these three? Fat loss, fat gain, not fat gain, hopefully. Fat loss, muscle gain, weight gain. What is the next level of nutrition that people should be thinking about?
Anti-aging and extending your life expectancy. Okay. Definitely. And anti-aging to an extent is possible, because it's never going to be proved, because it's not an age-old concept where too much research can be done on it. Of course, you can say that antioxidants and anti-inflammatories, they will help you take care of the oxidative stress, the free radicals your body produces, and logically it is anti-aging. But with time, I think anti-aging and increasing your life expectancy through food and nutrition is the next evolution in this field.
You want to spend some time talking about this, because I think this is quite interesting. Sure. And not too many people are discussing
essentially, every metabolic process that happens in your body, be it breathing, be it digesting food, whatever it is, you end up releasing some substances called free radicals, which are extremely powerful, energizing substances that float around your body. Now, the problem with these substances or these free radicals is that their main aim in life is to go on and attach themselves to random body parts and oxidize them. And let's make it a little clearer. Oxidize them means destroy them, for the lack of a better word. Now, the more bad habits you have, say the more you drink, or the more you smoke, or the more you're in front of passive smoke, or the more pollution in the air, or the more pesticides your food contains, all of these processes, all of these um, things essentially lead to a larger amount of free radicals being produced in your body. And they eventually are going to lead to more destruction of your body, which means they're going to lead to more aging in your body. So essentially, free radicals cause faster aging because aging is a degenerative process. And free radicals go and degenerate different parts of your body, be it your hair, your skin, your eyes, your organs, etc. So when you talk about anti-inflammatories and antioxidants, the point of these is to prevent the oxidation or the degeneration or the destruction of your body by going and attaching to these free radicals and neutralizing this uh, threat. That's what antioxidants do. So your colored fruits and vegetables and your omega-3 oils and your all of these things are basically aimed at reducing oxidative stress or reducing the amount of free radicals your body is circulating.
Okay.
That's anti-aging. And let's give another example. People who consume or not consume, who apply glutathione and vitamin C and all these serums on their face. Both of these are also antioxidant serums. So they're trying to prevent aging, or they're trying to prevent blemishes or pigments on their face by putting an antioxidant layer on their face, which is doing the same job. So of course, you can have them orally, you can apply them topically. So yeah, in fact, even the ultraviolet, yeah, that's the one we speak about. So these are all antioxidants and these are all anti-aging properties. Increasing life expectancy, I don't think too much is spoken about it. Of course, you have biohackers all around the world who are sometimes talk sense, sometimes don't talk sense. But this is the next thing. Once India becomes slightly richer and once you have more people ready to invest in their health, I myself probably might come up with some kind of a biohacking center, as long as I believe in it truly. Like as of now, I'm still not convinced, but yeah, that's the next stage.
Does your house look like a small laboratory?
It doesn't. Not yet. Not yet.
Then you must come home.
I'm coming home next week.
Yeah, because I getting all these gadgets and putting my little bakras through all of it. It's good fun. But yeah, you must do something around this biohacking, etc. It's something so interesting that's taking place in the world. It is right now expensive. So it is something that needs to percolate down for sure. Lovely. Last thing. What are a few books that you would recommend on nutrition or health that people should read?
You know what? The reason I don't recommend books is because you're reading someone's perspective for too long. Reading an article means you're reading someone's perspective for a short period of time. You can assimilate, you can absorb, and you can use. But reading a book, I think it's too much. This is also an excuse that I'm trying to give for not reading books myself, because I don't read books. I read research articles. That's where I've got all my nutrition information from. Whatever I need to research, I just go onto Google Scholar, type in certain keywords, and I read from there. So if you have to talk about a book, I frankly don't know, because I haven't read any books on nutrition for that matter. It's always been research articles. I don't even read articles on the web. Like I wouldn't ever go to Google and type how to lose weight. Never. It's always been go onto Google Scholar and read research, because I need to make sure what I'm saying is accurate and nobody can challenge me. And that's always been the case. Like even when I put out information on social media, it's impossible to challenge what I say, because I know for 100% that this is research backed. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that. Although I am writing a book and I'm probably done with about 140 pages out of 150. It's exactly what we spoke about in a very concise manner. And again, the same logic still applies, that it's my perspective for 150 pages, but it's going to be worth a read because I think it's written interestingly and it covers a lot. Like I'm going to name it the Ultimate Nutrition Handbook, and then I'm going to strike out ultimate and put only on top, because it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a great read, and it's going to give people a very clear picture on how nutrition actually works. So yeah, that's the book I would recommend.
Fun. When you launch the book, definitely come back on the Habit Coach podcast.
For
Read
sure.
out a few chapters to us. It'll be fun.
For sure.
Awesome. Siddhant, thank you so much for coming on. How can people get in touch with you, follow you, understand more about what all you're doing?
I think the majority is Instagram. Like I've been building my content creation and making my game stronger there. I touched 300,000 followers yesterday, which was a happy day. So Instagram is always a place. I don't consult personally anymore because I'm just doing too many things right now. So I don't consult personally, but of course I have Food Darzi and I have Coach Darzi and I have an entire team who's there to help people solve problems. So either Instagram, or you can just go on to Food Darzi and get more information, get fit, get healthy.
Superb. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ashden, for having me here.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashden Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome 180.
A wise man once said, traveling, it makes you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller.
Well, listen to such travel stories and experiences exploring India on the Musafir Stories with us, Saif and Faiza.
Catch us on the IVM website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Vaisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM Podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.